Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Agenda Review. We're going to be looking over agendas for Wednesday, April the 2nd. We'll also have some legislative issues to discuss here at the end. So Tom, take it away.
Thanks, Chairman. Good morning, Commission. Nicole's not here, so Tanya's going to give us the good news updates for Wednesday.
There will be 3 county announcements, April burn ban, and then the election commissioner will be on hand to talk about the winners of the I Voted contest. And then the health department will be on site to talk about the measles vaccination clinic that will be on Saturday, April 5th. So those are the 3 county announcements.
We have 2 proclamations, one national child abuse. That's Kansas Children's Service League will be in for they do that every year. It's the pinwheel proclamation. And then we have a proclamation declaring YEEP Financial Literacy Month. We have just 2 appointments. Aging and Physical Disabilities Board, Stephanie or Commissioner Wise's appointment, and Commissioner Beatty has an appointment to the same board. I imagine Justin will handle those together. Right. Just a couple of new business items. Sam will give us an update on the island annexation surrounding Valley Center. I think she's briefed you, or she will brief you if she hasn't already, on that annexation. And then we have one item on a bid board, which Lynn's here. It's a asphalt rejuvenation provider, $1,000,001 contract. So that's the only item on bid board, I believe. Any questions on that item?
Any questions on bid board?
On consent, it's a fairly short consent agenda. We have item G, which is an updated contract with the Mental Health Association. We have had a historical contract with them. This is the update for that with new CCBHC fees and our sharing of services with them. So that's the contract on item G. I would like to thank ComCare and legal, especially Tom Henry. Lindsay worked on that. It was a team effort to get that done. We've been working on that for 4 or 5 months. So this is the culmination of that. Item H is interesting. It's a federal grant for overdose through collaborative actions in localities going through the health department. I don't know if Adrian's on or not. I'm going to say this grant might be in some trouble. It's an application. We want to go ahead and make the application, but with the way things are going federally right now, with money coming down, especially on the health side of things, I don't think this has a real great chance. But it's on the agenda. We'll go through the application process. We'll go through the exercise.
Is this a grant we've had before?
Yes.
I believe it is. Yes.
Yes. If you remember, Dr. Stedman and Adrian both came and spoke to you about this.
About a year ago, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
And then item I is our, we have ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children, that we jointly do with City of Wichita PD and Sheriff. This is an update of the approval of that to run us through end of federal year. And then there's some position reclasses on item J that I want Sheena to just talk through very briefly here. It's all health department reclasses.
So these were positions that we initially had issues with when we were doing our evergreen study, and we're just wrapping back up to those. This was initiated by Human Resources to look at these positions. So we had a chance to go in, work with the department, really find out about what duties they were doing, what responsibilities these positions had. And that's where these recommendations are coming from.
How many total?
There's 8.
8. Okay.
7 of them are filled right now.
Is the funding source for these changing at all?
I don't know. The funding source is not changing. There is some impact in the funding, though. There is an increase, and that's been reviewed by finance.
And are these property tax funded or other sources of funding?
Both.
It's a combination. I will say there's also, this is part of a bigger spectrum with especially what's going on federally. we're going to have to spend a lot of time and have a real look at all of our federally funded operations that we see pass-through dollars for in the county, especially health. This is part of that process as well. There's more to come on this. But I think this actually was just a historical fix that we're trying to get everybody based on the kind of job duties they have classified to the right level based on a historical study, right?
I guess I'd just like to have, it's been a while since we talked about this. I would like to have some type of a deeper understanding exactly how many property tax dollars are being spent at the public health department and
Yes.
what kind of services are being provided and kind of review, you know, or is this discretionary or is this mandated? I want to get up to speed on property tax spending at that department specifically, because I think there's been opportunities in the past and I don't know where we are today because a lot of things have changed and
We are,
so I'm just not sure where we are on that. So
we are taking a deep dive on that, Commissioner Lindsay, of an approximate time. You think we have a report back for commission?
I mean, we know that we want it for the budget process, so I would hope to have May or June would be a report out on what you're discussing. We are going to look at positions and what specific job duties they're doing. So that we can understand as Tom said, and this is going to be kind of everybody, but when you look at federal dollars flowing into the county, the health department is the single largest. When we looked at last year's, they had $8 million when we excluded COVID funding. So we see them as the greatest weak point at this point, all the way down to emergency management, which is less dollars, but much more impactful to their operations of the department. So we're going to be looking at everything. I think we're going to have to look at a risk assessment and to really understand, are these things potentially targeted or not? We need to understand what those positions are doing, what programs they flow up to. You're actually going to see a fairly revamped budget this year. I think you all probably know that the health department finance manager separated from the organization last summer. That position still has not been filled. So Michelle Strude, our grants compliance director, has been kind of stepping in and doing a lot of that day-to-day financial management work, grant awards. So this is going to be, I think we're going to have an opportunity in May to deep dive into their budget because of that, but then also because we're looking at these positions from the federal perspective. So there's going to be a lot more information coming in the next few months for sure.
thank you.
Did that hit it, Tom?
Yep. That was everything else routine business on the agenda. We will have an executive session. There is no fire agenda.
Any questions on anything so far?
And let's talk about legislative.
Let's talk legislature. Yeah. Good luck, Tanya.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. So I had a quick call with Jason this morning, and what he was able to tell me is that the Senate concluded last night or adjourned last night at 9, and the House adjourned at 10 o'clock. Just to give you some updates on where we're at, as far as property tax, 4% cap didn't make it, didn't pass. What did pass was Senate Bill 35, which has the 1.5 state mill levy cut. The Senate basically debated the budget and then went home after that. So what that means is I followed up with him as far as where we're at on our bills, because those bills were supposed to have been discussed last night and hopefully had been passed through. What he basically said was that our elections bill made it, but the bills that did not make it, and it's kind of languishing out there, are the mains bill, our sales tax bill, and the treasurer's bill. What he does not know is whether or not, when they come back for veto session, which starts April 10th, and that's scheduled for 2 days, is whether or not these bills will come back up for discussion. So that's yet to be determined. So that's kind of where we're at on our bills. What he did say, Commissioner Howell, and I think you alluded to this at Wednesday's meeting, is that most likely House Bill 2329 will not pass this year. And he did state that that has to do a lot with a particular senator who does not want to see that going. So that's kind of where we're at, and I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
What was the date you said they're going back?
April 10th.
That's what I thought. Okay. I would just tell you that I actually had some hope on 2329 because there's a lot of judicial bills in the Senate that there's a lot of interest in seeing those move forward. And Chairman Bob Lewis on the House side, he has a strong desire to see 2329 get conferenced in. Again, it hasn't gone through the Senate hearing process, but it is conferenceable. That would have happened, but there's a lot of judicial bills that will basically not processed through they didn't get through the process yesterday for a lot of reasons. So I don't know how many judicial bills there are, but there's a lot of them. In fact, I would say the Senate abandoned about 10 bills last night, and the House abandoned about 10 bills last night. I was actually watching this, and the House actually did the first adjournment at 11:40 p.m. Just to be clear, it was very late. But there's probably 20 bills, I guess, right now that are that were conferenced. They were conferenced, and they would have come up for debate, but those were largely ignored. I think these bills, because this is a 2-year process, those bills that were in conference or could have gone in conference, they can still go through the normal process next January. So they're not dead. The ones that are conferenced, I think they actually can consider those conference committee reports next January. So I'm not sure that anything is actually dead, unless it had a vote that would kill it. So again, I think it's disappointing. Both bodies walked away from about 20 bills that were ready for debate, and so there was a lot of work on the Senate side to get the tax bill moving again, and the House did some things to basically stop that process. And so that's kind of what I think that's why everything just ended abruptly the way that it did. So the only tax bill we got passed really that deals with property taxes is the 1.5 mils. And just to be clear, it's about $17.25 on a $100,000 house. You could do the math and expand that out. That revenue, 1.5 mils, will be funded through other sources of revenue to the state of Kansas. So it's not that we're not taking care of those things. They're using other sources of funding. It does open up another opportunity now. I was really begging them to do it for 1.5 mils because it does open up the opportunity I talked about before of how we pay our tax bills and who we pay them to. We are now actually configured, I think, at the state level to have that conversation more robustly. So I'm kind of excited about that piece. I think it was a really good move. And I think it does provide an opportunity for some significant tax reform that will, I think, will cause a lot more education and understanding by the taxpayer on exactly where the tax dollars go. So I'm very excited about that piece. And it was Senate Bill 35, and that is going to the governor's desk. So a lot of losses yesterday, but overall, the session was pretty good. I'm very pleased with what they got done. And these bills that we need to get passed, they're not dead. They're just going to be delayed. So.
So, between the 3 bills that our interest remains, treasurers and sales tax, if we were going to make a push, would it be advisable to ask for all 3 of these to still go, or do we want to prioritize and say we really need this one first? My mind, treasurers would be really important.
Treasurers has the biggest impact to your budget in the
Right.
short term.
Okay, so as between sure Hal and Beatty and myself that talk to the people, should we focus, just make sure that the treasurer's bill gets some attention at the last minute instead of watering it down with the other 2?
They've reserved 3 days for veto, but really they're going to do it in 2. So they'll be there on the 10th and the 11th, and they're going to end for the year. And I don't think there's going to be any chance to spend any more money on either one of those 2 days. And so the veto session they're not going to deal with adding cost to the budget. That's what that treasurer's bill would do. So I think that bill is not going to advance this year. Again, we have a chance next year. Sales tax bill actually I think is in trouble anyway, because it wasn't really a lot of support in the House Tax Committee with the way it's currently written. I don't think that even passed the first committee. So that's not even conferenceable right now. It's a live bill, but it's not got any movement really. And then the cremains bill, I think, is more of a policy thing that potentially could pass in this veto session, only because it's a policy piece. It doesn't require any dollars. And if they have any extra time during those 2 days, they might potentially bring that one up. if they want to deal with anything at all. But I think at the end of the day, the legislature just wants to get done with the veto bills and get out of there. So I don't know they're going to mess with it either. Although out of the 3 bills, that's the only one I think actually has a chance of passing, if anything at all passes during those 2 days.
Well, it was back to, and I agree with Lindsay, the biggest fiscal impact is treasury, but I hear Commissioner Howell there, but on the sales tax issue, I'm looking for some incentive. I know this commission's going to want to cut mill levy in our 2026 budget, and there's not only is there not incentive to do it, now there's a penalty for us to do that, just like there was last year. That's why I was hoping we'd get some traction there. I don't know that there's a cost to the state on that. It's
No, but this is considered a taking from our cities. And so the fact that it's controversial, we were asking Jason and legislators actually to create a committee kind of do a deep dive and make some recommendations. This bill's not going to pass as is, but I think if this committee does some work that are basically neutral parties looking at the policy side of this, make some recommendations back to the tax committee, there's a chance this would pass next year. But without that committee doing some work to make that recommendation, we're an advocate that benefits, and the cities are advocating for their side because they're going to lose dollars. And so it's hard to get the legislature to pick sides when it's the winners versus the losers. They're not going to want to get in that fight. But again, this committee to look at the principle behind it and make a recommendation that might motivate the committee to move forward. We're just not there yet. It's going to take, I think, the summer to get that committee active, and hopefully they can do some interim work between now and next January to make a recommendation.
I mean, that's a lot of talk to come down to just swinging and missing on a lot of stuff. That's just a lot of effort and work. It's incredibly frustrating. Okay. Anything else?
I think that's all we had.
All right. Enjoy your weekend.
Um,